Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to look at how to do remote archery coaching and delayed feedback preview using OBS Studio. But before we get into the software side of things, I'd just like to mention some hardware considerations. Whatever computer you use, I would recommend that you plug the cameras back into the same ports every time. So each specific camera should plug into a specific slot. If you don't think you'll remember, draw a little diagram and label your cameras so you know exactly which ones to plug them in. This is only important if you have more than one camera from the same manufacturer and it's the same model. If you don't do this and plug it into different slots every time, OBS will actually get confused and won't know which camera is which, and sometimes your input might get switched. Another consideration is cable length. The webcam usually doesn't come with too short a cable, but the cables aren't humongously long either. So for example, in my garage, if I want to run the camera from my computer all the way to the target, which is 4 meters away, the USB cable is not long enough. So what I've had to do there is to run a USB hub out of the computer and plug the webcam into the USB hub. Now obviously you need to make sure that the USB hub is good enough and compatible with the webcam you're plugging in. And even with a hub, there will be a limitation on how long the cables can be. So with the hardware considerations done, what you want to do is before you turn the computer on, make sure all the cameras are plugged in and then turn the computer on. I would also recommend that you never unplug any of the cameras while the computer is on. And you might have to reconfigure which camera is which if you plug any additional USB devices in. So I would recommend that you plug all the USB devices that you would want to use in permanently and leave it like that. Again, if you only have one webcam or if you have no cameras that are of the same make and model, then this might not be a problem for you. In my personal experience, I've tried up to 5 cameras and it works fine. If you have 5 cameras or more, you might need to do a little trick to get the 5th and beyond cameras working. But if you have 4 cameras or below, you do not need to do this trick. And I will go through that trick later on in the video. So now we'll move on to the software side of things, which is to download OBS Studio. So we can head to the website obsproject.com, or you can Google for OBS Studio. They will take you to the same place. And you can see here it supports Windows, Mac, and Linux. So whatever platform you're on, you're able to make use of this. And it's also free and open source, so anybody can download this and use it. For me, I'm on Windows, so I will click the Windows button and download the OBS installer. Once you've got OBS installed, open it and you will see a window like this. It should also come up with a dialog box in the middle asking if you would like to use the setup wizard. I've actually opened this program once before already, and so I've already got rid of the dialog. That's why it hasn't come up. But if this is the first time you're running the program, you will get that dialog. I would be inclined to say no. I always say no because I know exactly which settings I want to change, and so I don't need the wizard. Once you're into this main interface, what you want to do is to click the maximize button just to make everything a little bit bigger so it's easier for you to see and maneuver and control. Firstly, I'm going to go through the main interface and watch each section does and what they mean. This black rectangle in the middle, this here, is the preview window. And this is the live view of all the cameras. And this will be active both whilst you're streaming or recording or when it's just idle. And this will be useful for both the remote coaching and the delayed feedback. On the bottom left here, we've got 2 sections called scenes and sources. This is where you can control which webcam and which devices are displayed, and you can choose where they're displayed. And the scenes means you can set up multiple configurations and you can switch between them easily. In the bottom here, we have audio mixer, and this will display all the audio devices you've got added to OBS. Currently, I only have desktop audio, but in order to use the audio from your webcam and such, you will need to add extra devices. We'll go through that later on when we go into the settings menu. For now, look for the desktop audio section. This should be the only thing in here. If not, you might have an additional one which says microphone or mic aux, AUX or something like that. For both of them, you would want to click this little speaker icon and mute them. So for the microphone, if you have a microphone installed, it will probably be from a headset or it will be from the laptop speakers. You don't really want to use those because they're not going to be next to you when you're doing archery. You'd rather use the microphones from the webcam if they're available. So mute both. Desktop audio is all the sounds that your computer plays. So anything you would hear through the speakers or headphones will be recorded, and we don't want that. We just want the camera feed, and so this is why we've muted this as well. So with that done, we're going to have a look at the settings. We'll first go to File, Settings. In the General tab, it's all preference-based stuff, so it doesn't really matter. It's all personal, whichever you prefer. The only part I would say maybe you would want to look at is the system tray part. So this means it will go into the system tray here rather than just minimize to here. I've had occasions where I didn't know OBS was still running and it's just minimized in the corner, but it was still transmitting. So whether you want to enable this, it's up to you. In the streaming section, it defaults to Twitch. Now what we want to do is to switch this to YouTube. We don't have the stream key yet, so we will come back to this later. So just set it to YouTube for now and leave it on primary YouTube ingest server. In the output section, we want to change the output mode to advanced. For the encoder, I highly recommend the X264 instead of the NVIDIA NVENC. The NVIDIA option is only available if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. If you don't, this option won't show up. The NVIDIA NVENC codec is supposed to take the strain off your CPU and run the video encoding on your graphics card on a dedicated section. However, from my previous experience, I've noticed that the quality is terrible when you stream with the NVIDIA NVENC. And so if your computer can handle it, I would recommend using X264. Keep the rate control as CBR, which is constant bit rate. And now what we want to do is to visit this site here, and the link will be in the description below as well. When you get to this page, there will be recommendations for particular resolutions and frames per second, and it will recommend what range of bit rates to use. Although although they recommend a range to you, this is only a recommendation. The real setting will be highly dependent on how powerful your computer is and how good your internet is. If your internet is not very good, then you will have to lower your bitrate or lower the resolution, or both. So ideally, if you can, you would want to get a 60 frames per second webcam, because we're talking about a sport where a millisecond counts. When you do an archery shot, it's from going into anchor and then releasing. it's a minute section of time. And so the higher frames per second you have, the more sort of temporal resolution you'll have. And when you play it back in slow motion, you'll be able to see more detail, and you'll be able to see things you might not be able to see, say, at 30 frames per second. So for me, I personally use 1080p, 60 frames per second. But if your camera only does 30 frames per second, there's no point wasting bandwidth doing such a high bit rate because you only have 30 frames per second. At which point you can just use the normal 1080p. I wouldn't recommend going about 1080p because otherwise your internet will have to be very good in order to support this. So we can see at 1080p, 60 frames per second, it recommends between 4,500 to 9,000. So just for the moment, we're going to type in 5,000. You will need to check and tune this as you stream. Your coach will be able to help you with this. If they look at the video feed and they are sure that the internet is able to handle your live stream, and they are seeing sort of blockiness or jerkiness, or the stream keeps cutting out and then coming back in, then it probably means your upload speed isn't fast enough for this particular bit rate at this particular resolution. So you can either lower the bit rate, or lower the resolution, or lower the frames per second, or lower all of them. The rest you can pretty much leave as default. It doesn't matter very much. And now we move on to the recording section. So this streaming section is only responsible for when you are broadcasting this to your coach. Recording is separate. So this will store on your local machine, and you can look at it anytime you like afterwards. So here we don't really need to change anything. You might want to change the recording path if you so desire. Recording format, I would probably say you only really need to choose between MKV or MP4. With MP4, the one downside is if there's a power cut or if your computer crashes whilst you are in a live recording, the entire video becomes useless. Whereas if you have an MKV, you can actually open the file up and recover up to the frame where the power cut or the crash occurred. So depending on whether you want the recoverability, you might want to choose MKV. If not, then just choose MP4. The encoder will use the same as the stream encoder, or if you do have an NVIDIA graphics card, we can go into the NVENC option, because when we're recording locally, the hard drive, the speed at which your computer talks to the hard drive, it's much faster than the speed of your internet. And so you'll be able to handle much higher bit rates with the NVENC, and so the quality will be much better. I've actually never used this NVENC for recording archery personally. I've only ever used this for recording gaming, and I had quite a good success with 50,000 kilobits per second. However, I will warn you that is quite a big that is a very large bit rate. And so what will happen is you'll receive a much bigger file at the end of the recording. If you're not happy with that, you can always lower the bit rate just to lower the quality a bit, but the file size will also be smaller. So this section is pretty much done like this. If you don't want to use the NVENC, or if you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card, just click use stream encoder and it will use the same settings as when you're streaming. The audio section, we don't need to bother about it. 160 kilobits per second is more than enough for this purpose. We're not looking for high definition audio here. We just need to be able to hear us speak or hear the sound of the bow. So that's the output section done. We now move to the audio section. Now you can see you can add particular devices. So if you have just one camera, you would go to the mic auxiliary audio and select the only webcam you've plugged in. However, if you have more than one camera, you will need to decide which camera will become the microphone. I would recommend the one that is closest to you and is most directly in front of you, as that will pick up your speaking much better. If a webcam is already selected in this section and it was one of the ones you muted at the bottom at the beginning, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you select the correct camera. If you have more than one camera of the same make and model, you might have two of the same name coming up, and you won't be able to tell which one is which. The only way you can tell is to select one of them and then go up to it and tap it lightly. Don't tap it very hard. It's just the lightest tap, and the green bar here should pulse. And if you just tap one webcam over the other, if it doesn't pulse and you select the other one and it pulses, it means you've tapped on the correct camera, and that is the one you want. It's a very crude way of doing it, but it's the fastest and most efficient way I've discovered so far. So I've selected the microphone on my webcam, and that's pretty much done in this section. We'll now move on to the video section. Now the base canvas resolution is the resolution of the preview window at the back here. And it defaults to 1080p for me because my resolution is 1080p. I prefer to stream at 1080p because it means the resolution is good enough that you can zoom in slightly if you like. And so in this output scaled resolution, I will change this to 1920 by 1080. In the frames per second section, you can choose 30 or 60 or anything in between. You can even enter custom values. However, it will be highly dependent on your webcam. The webcam I'm doing this demonstration with is only capable of 30 frames per second. And so I'm going to choose 30. But if you have webcams that are 60 frames per second capable, then you might want to change this to 60, just so that you have more frames per second on your recording and your stream. And so if you ever play it back to watch it in slow motion, you'll be able to see more detail. It'll be more temporal details, so there'll be more frames more often rather than a higher resolution. If you find your internet isn't good enough and your upload can't handle this resolution at this frames per second, again, like mentioned before, you can either lower one or the other, or both. So with that set up, everything else is optional. You can set up hotkeys. I won't talk about this in this particular video, but you're welcome to have a look and experiment with that if you like. And once we're done, we'll click apply and press OK. So you can see a new one's come up now. It says mic auxiliary, and you can see the microphone jumping up and down because I'm talking at the moment and the webcam is picking up me speaking. However, in this particular instance, I don't want that because I have a separate microphone that I'm recording. So I'm muting it, but you might not want to mute yours. An additional consideration is if you have the mic and auxiliary turned on to your webcam, if you also have a video call with your coach as you're doing this, which is what I do, I stream this video live to my coach and then we talk on WhatsApp video call. Then I can disable all the microphone inputs because I can hear him through WhatsApp and he can hear me through WhatsApp, and this broadcast will be for video only. I would also recommend asking your coach if you're going to be talking over WhatsApp video call, I would also recommend your coach to mute the YouTube video, live broadcast so that he doesn't hear you speaking or your bow shooting, and then he hears the delayed sound a few seconds after on the live stream if this is not disabled. But if it's all disabled, then it's all good. No sound will be transmitted. Okay, so now we're going to look at the scenes and sources section. Now this could seem confusing at the beginning, but once you see it in action, it becomes immediately obvious what they're for and how to use them. So by default, OBS already adds a scene for you. So all we need to do is to go to the sources section and click the plus icon and go to video capture device. There are plenty of other things that you can use, but they're not useful for this specific purpose. All we care about is the video capture device for now. So you want to name the source. So for each webcam that you have, you would need a source. So for example, if we call this one webcam target. So this would be the camera at the target, and we'll go OK. So you can see the video feed here, and this is just facing the wall, but you can see if I move my hand in front of it, you can see my hand move. It's automatically selected the first video device. For me, it's the only video device, but if you have several of them, it will select the first one in the list. What you want to do now is go through each option and see the video preview. And when it gets to the correct camera for this label, we'll know it's the right one and we'll leave it there. And then we'll come down here. You don't have to set the resolution of frames per second if it's already correct by default. If you're not sure, or if the default setting is wrong, you can come to this box, the resolution/FPS type box, and choose custom. Then you are able to select your own custom resolution and your own custom frames per second. If you plan on using more than one camera, so for example, if I had 5 cameras and there will be 4 in each corner and then 1 in the middle, there's no point making the feed 1080p, because you're going to be minimizing it into a 720p section anyway. However, if you have bandwidth to spare and your computer is powerful enough, you could make this higher resolution if you want, and things will just be that little bit clearer. So once you're happy with this, you can press OK, and now we've come back to the main preview window. You can see that the video feed is now showing, and there's a red square around it with little, red rectangle around it and little red squares all around. You can use these little red squares to resize the window. It always maintains the correct ratio, so there's no need to worry about that. And if you click anywhere inside this box, you're able to move this around. So you can, if I wanted it in the corner, I could do this. If I wanted to make it full screen, I can drag it all the way across. But for now, we're going to fill up approximately a quarter of the screen. At this point, if you had more cameras to add, you can press the plus button and add another video device and keep adding and keep moving them around until you've got the cameras in the location that you'd like. Once you're happy with the setup, or if you're happy with a particular camera, you can lock a particular source, which means I won't be able to move this source anymore. If you add other sources that are unlocked, you will be able to move those around. It's very useful because sometimes if you have sources that are overlapping and you click between the two of them, you might drag the wrong one and you've moved it or resized it, and you've ruined the configuration you've got. So once you're happy with one particular source, go ahead and just press this little lock here to make sure it doesn't get moved by accident. When the whole scene, when you're happy with the placement of everything in the whole scene, what you can do is right click the preview window and click lock preview. At this point, even if this is all unlocked, you won't be able to move anything on the preview window. You might not be able to right click if you don't have a custom mouse on a Mac. At this point, I believe you will need to either do control click or command click to bring up the context menu. So that's one scene done. So we'll imagine that I have other cameras added and this is a quad view. But now let's say we want one view where it's just the full screen of our target webcam. So we'll go to this plus here and we'll add a new scene, and we'll call this target full screen, and press OK. So now you can see the camera feed has disappeared. This is because we've got to the new scene now and it's selected and it doesn't have any sources yet. If we click back to the old scene, you can see it comes back because whatever we've set up here is only applied to that particular scene. So when we come to the new one, we'll have to add them again. But because we've added that webcam before, you can see in the existing section, our webcam target is already there. So we can press add existing, select this and press OK. And you can see it's come up again. But you can also see that the size is different to the previous scene. It only transfers across the device, but it doesn't transfer across the placement or the size. So with this one, we can make it full screen. And once we're happy with it, we can lock it. And if we click between the two, you can see I can transition between them quickly and easily with no problem. So if we come back to the audio mixer, we can now see we've got webcam target here. Because it's a webcam source, it will have an audio input. But for us, we don't need to use that, so we can just mute that for the moment. So that's how you set up the scenes and sources. Now we're going to add one more scene, but instead of adding it from here, we want to copy this one. So for me, when I do archery in the garage, I either have the live view like this, or I like to have a 10-second delayed camera view. And so what happens is what you see on this preview window is delayed by 10 seconds to what happens in real life. So I could shoot my shot, and then I could look at the screen, and I can see myself shoot, and then I can do the next shot. It's useful for both the multi-view and the single screen view. So what we're going to do is take this multi-view scene, we're going to right click it, and we're going to click duplicate. And we'll call this multicam delayed. And press OK. And now you can see these two scenes are exactly the same because this is literally just a copy of this one. We're also going to rename this one multicam, just so that it's a bit more clear. But by default, once you've duplicated it, it's still a live feed. It will be instantaneous. Whatever you do will show up here straight away. So we need to find some way of delaying this. How we do that is by right-clicking the particular scene and then clicking filters. In here, you can add lots of different effect filters, but the one we want is render delay. Once you've clicked render delay, you can name it whatever you like. I'm just going to name it render delay 1. You will see in a second why we've named it 1. And it will come up in the list here, and you can see the preview, and you can see delay 0 milliseconds. So what we're going to do is type in 500 milliseconds here, which is half a second. Now, for some reason, this box only allows you to delay by 500 milliseconds. You can't type a number bigger than that. So if I delete the end 0, and I try to type 1 in, it doesn't let me. It only allows you to type 500 milliseconds at maximum. So in order for me to have a 10-second delay, I would actually need to add 20 render delay effects, which sounds painstaking, but once you've done it the first time, you would never have to do it again, as long as you don't delete that scene. And so just to show you what that means, you can copy the 500 milliseconds text, click plus, click render delay, name this render delay 2, and paste that in here. And now this is 1 second delay because I have 2 500 millisecond delays. I've not found a better way to do this. If you discover a better way to do this, please let me know. You can't right click and duplicate. You can't copy and paste the entire filter. All you can do is paste the number. So this is the best way I've found to do it, and you have to add it 20 times if you want 10 seconds. So, and each of these don't have to be the same number. So on your last delay, if you find 500 milliseconds is too much, you can change this down to whatever number you like. So we're going to just make this 1 second, and we're going to press close. So now if I move my hand in front of the camera, see it's delayed. If I'm doing it when I say it, so now, see my hand comes in to the frame slightly later. If I go to the multicam and I go now, it's instant. And so this is useful for when you want to shoot, when you're shooting on your own and you just want a bit of feedback without having to fiddle around with the timing, with the camera, trying to play back and review and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend too long a delay because ideally you'd want to keep up your shooting intensity. You don't want to be waiting for ages between every shot. But this, obviously everyone's shot have a different time length, so you have to find one that works for you. So now that all the scenes are done, you are ready to go live, or you're ready to record. If you want to record, all you need to do is just press start recording and it will just start recording. But we are not actually quite ready to stream yet because there's one setting we hadn't sorted yet before, but I needed to show all this context first. And then the last step, we can set the stream key. So if we go to File, Settings, we'll be back in the Settings menu. And if we go into the Stream tab, earlier we chose YouTube, but we hadn't put in the stream key yet. So here I'm going to show you how to do this. So what we're going to do, if you have YouTube, go to your YouTube page, log in, click on your little icon and click on your channel. And in there you'll see YouTube Studio on the top right. Click that. And you will go into your channel dashboard. And once you're here, what you can do is you can do go live button here, and it will take you to the YouTube Live Studio. And then what you want to do is click on stream. And now you can type a new stream. So for me, I usually just type in the date. So it's the 5th today for 2020. So this is UK date. So this is the 5th of April. I would recommend you do unlisted. If you do public, randoms can just find it on YouTube and come in. If you do unlisted, they can only find the video if they have the link, and you can send the link to your coach, and then your coach can visit. And so you won't get random people coming in. You can add a description if you like. So if it's a particular session to work on something, you can type that into there. So all of the streams are recorded and stored on YouTube. So you can look back at it at any time. And this category doesn't matter. You can select sports, but it's only for your personal use, so it doesn't matter. And what we're going to do is, no, it's not made for kids, no age restriction. And then once you're happy with all of this, you can press create stream. And once it's done, it should come up and you will get this page, and it will say download and set up your streaming software, which we have done. And now it says paste stream key into your software. So you can view it by clicking this eye here, or you can press copy and it will copy into your clipboard. Never show anyone this key. That's why I'm not showing you my key. This key is personal to my channel, and this should never be given to anyone else. So just copy it and then go back to OBS and then paste the key into here. You can again press show to see it, but if you paste it, it shouldn't be wrong. Put it into there, and then you don't need to bother with the stream URL because OBS already knows you're going to YouTube. So once you're happy with that, you can press done. And you will come into this streaming section. For the latency, it doesn't really matter. You can select low latency if you feel like the stream is too delayed for your coach. So you can select low latency if you like. And then enable DVR just means it records it into the into your YouTube profile. It's not a 360 video, don't need to add a delay, no captions, and that's pretty much it. So now, if you are in OBS, you should be able to broadcast. Now I'm going to stop the recording for a moment, put in my stream key, and then I'm going to come back and show you what to do from that point onwards. Okay, so I'm back and I've typed in my stream key into OBS. So now if we go to here, it will say connect streaming software to start preview. So I'm going to go to my OBS and click start streaming. And on the bottom right here, you will see the screen, and green means it's the status is okay, and it'll tell you what kilobits per second it's transmitting. So our bitrate is 5000, so it's transmitting around 5 kilobits per second, which is correct. It'll tell you how much of the CPU is using, and how many frames per second it's currently broadcasting. We have 0 drop frames, which is good. If you keep dropping frames, either your computer isn't powerful enough or your internet isn't good enough. Here it tells you you've been live for 40 seconds and we're not recording, so the recording timer isn't going up. If you've clicked both, if you're recording as well, then this will also count up. Now if we go back to the YouTube page, you will see now we have a preview of our live stream. And it says excellent connection, so it's handling it quite well at the moment. So now that we've got the stream preview and we're happy with it, what we can now do is right click on this preview and do copy video URL, and that will give you the address for the stream. So now if we just test it, go to a new tab and paste that in. And you can see that this is the preview for our video. So once we've got at this point, you can send the link to your coach and he can tune in and get ready for you to start streaming. And once you're ready, you can go to the top right here and click go live. It'll say you're live. Okay, so it'll tell you you're live. You can see the live icon here, and on the top right there's a button which says end stream. So if we go to the live view now, let's just run that. There we go. You don't even need to click on it. It will automatically update. So now if we look at it, we can see we're streaming a wall. Exhilarating stuff. Anyway, so that's the so you can preview that to make sure that works, and then send the link to your coach, and then your coach will be able to see what you're doing. So just to show you, actually, if we open the preview and we go back to OBS, so you can see that it's the same thing, and if you change view, the live feed should update correspondingly. There you go. There is quite a delay between this, but it's not enough that it's severely off-putting, because the coach would need to wait and watch the shot, but it's not a crazy delay, so it's not too bad. So now we'll change back to multicam. Yeah, so there you go. This timing is inconsistent because live streaming is dependent on a lot of different things. So you can't really control how long this delay is, unfortunately, but it's not too bad. And it's yeah. So that's the live stream, and once you've got this, everything's set up, and at the end of your session, you can go and press end stream. Are you sure? Yes, end. And it will say it's done. So now you can go edit it in YouTube Studio if you like. You don't have to. You can change the title, description, thumbnails and things like that, I always unlist my lessons, but if you and your coach feel like you want to upload it for people to see, you can always change this to public and publicize your YouTube channel. But that's pretty much it. And because we've stopped the stream on the other end, we can press stop streaming here. You can press stop streaming here and then end it over there, or you can do it either way. It doesn't matter, as long as you end it at both places at some point, then you're okay. Recording is the same. So we press record, it will start recording to your local drive, and I've set it to my video folder. So you can set that to wherever you want in File, Settings, Output, Recording here. And that's pretty much everything. So the main thing to remember is if you want to edit any of the cameras, you can double click any source and it will come up with the properties. If you plug the camera in the wrong place, or if you plug devices in that wasn't there before, the IDs could change, and OBS might jiggle the cameras around so that your webcam target might become the one on the shooting line or something. And in that case, all you need to do is just to go through the list again and select the correct ones for the correct target. Just be aware that if the camera is being used by another source and you click the same one, you will just get a black screen. So if, say, webcam target is being used by shooting line camera, you need to go to the shooting line one and change it to something else, or disable it first before you're able to see it on webcam target. Again, this is only a problem if you have more than one camera of the same make and model. So before we end the video, I just wanted to show you an example of what I've done personally in my own garage. So as you can see, I've got cameras all around me. And so this one is directly in front of me when I'm standing on the shooting line. This one is on the ceiling, so it's facing down to me, above me. And this one is behind me when I'm on the shooting line. And this one is from the target looking forwards. It's quite far away, which is why it's so zoomed in and the quality is so bad. And the middle one is actually in camera view just to look at my anchor. So we're going to have a look at the video. Please don't judge my form, still work in progress. So you can see all of them are moving in sync simultaneously. And once I get to full draw, if I pause it, you can see the top-down view gives you a good view of your back and front arm alignment. And the back camera allows you to see your sort of hip alignment, whether you're standing straight up or not. And this view allows you to see here whether you're getting a good sort of secure anchor, and you can place the camera wherever you like, and it's up to you to work with your coach to see which camera angles are most beneficial for you at that moment in time. You can see that this screen here is my preview screen. So once I've shot, I can just look directly forwards at the camera and I will be able to see my preview like this. My computer is here, and you can see there's a USB hub here with the cable that runs behind like this. There's also a USB cable that runs up along this wall, up along this wall and across the top of the doorway and then down again, so that the camera at the back, which is behind me here, is connected to. And as you move around, you're going to see that at the moment the ceiling camera is slightly too far back, but because as I shoot I'm moving backwards, once I get to this sort of position, it's perfect for looking at alignment. So this is just an example of a 5-camera setup. You can do it however you like. Again, it's up to your coach and yourself to work out which angle would be the most beneficial for you at that moment. And yeah, happy shooting.